It is April 16th, 2017. It is Easter Sunday, day 87 of the Donald Trump White House regime. And Donald Trump, on his first Easter in the White House, he has egg on his face. What am I talking about? Well, there was no huge factory that broke ground in America today that would employ 10,000 out-of-work Americans. No, what Donald Trump has done is he has sent a huge armada of naval ships, which quite possibly the whole shebang probably cost America close to $1 billion. $1 billion we don't have. But nevertheless, this armada is at North Korea's coast, and Donald Trump is golfing. To understand how bad this is, you really have to know that Donald Trump is not in charge. It really doesn't matter who would have won the White House, whether it be Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. It doesn't matter who's in the White House. They take orders from somebody else. Our country's been taken over. Even the former president of Iran says Donald Trump is not in charge. We all know that. Donald Trump ran his campaign America First. What's he done? Well, he's done nothing for America. All he has done is drop bombs, shot off missiles, and he's helped the military-industrial complex get that much richer. So our first story today, on day 86, is there is some speculation out there that the U.S. military has the technology to blow up the North Korean missile on the launch pad or sometime thereafter. Let's quickly go into this theory. Number one, to understand the North Korea's missile technology, you would need a working knowledge of Chinese, which Donald Trump does not. The only thing Donald Trump knows about Chinese is he thinks that they like chocolate cake. Apparently, when Donald Trump tells the Chinese bad news, it's over chocolate cake. But anyhow, you need to know, you have to have a basic working understanding of Chinese to understand the situation in North Korea. Because North Korea gets their missile technology from China. We'll go into that later. The number two thing you have to understand in this theory that the U.S. could blow up the missile upon launch time or thereafter, the number two thing you have to understand is the United States military has been working on shooting down missiles with like lasers or other type of rockets, aka Star Wars programs. They have had some limited success with this out at Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. So the most important thing to understand in this theory that's bouncing around out there on Easter Sunday is that if the United States military is going to shoot a missile down, they're probably going to do it how they've been testing it out at Vandenberg. They try to shoot, the ICBM goes off at Vandenberg, and then they have naval ships with other type of missiles, and they try to shoot it down that way. There's also top secret laser programs going on, but all this technology has to do when the missile is airborne. That was not the case yesterday. The reality of the situation, if it even happened, you see, we do not even have pictures or video of the missile blowing up. So let's assume that North Korea is telling us the truth, that the missile blew up right at launch time. Remember, we're just assuming that this is true. Now we have to speculate on what happened. So first, before you get into the specifics of the missile blowing up, to understand the North Korea fiasco that Obama and Trump have escalated us into. This is not just a Trump escalation. This has been going on for a while. But to understand why America is escalating the situation, you really do have to understand the pain of losing power as a superpower. See, when your power is fading, you struggle. You struggle with this. It's like a heavyweight champion of the world. You try to reclaim your glory days. America is fading. Many of us in America, we don't want to come to terms with this. We don't want to understand that China is beating us in so many things. But to understand what's going on in Korea, you have to understand that there are some people out there in the deep state, the military-industrial complex, and they're trying to reclaim their glory days. Like I said, think of it like the ex-champ, Muhammad Ali, past his glory days. He's past his prime. He's no longer the greatest that he was when he was beating up the strong ones like Kenny Norton, Joe Frazier. He's just a shadow of who he was. So, but he wants to reclaim that glory. So he picks out a nobody like Leon Spinks, to try to bully or try to mess around with. The problem is that when you're a faded power like Muhammad Ali is, you're going to even have problems with nobodies like Leon Spinks. I mean, Leon Spinks is no Joe Frazier, trust me. But that's what it comes down to when you have a fading power and they're trying to reclaim the glory. Think of Korea, North Korea, as Leon Spinks. Think of the fading American empire as a Muhammad Ali that's fading, struggling with that loss of power. Who's the new adult in the room? Well, the new adult in the room is Xi Jinping, the Chinese leader. He's the guy that says, this is going to be settled peacefully. This is what it all comes down to. And if the little unstable children are smart, they will listen to the Chinese leader. If the unstable bullies, Trump and the Korean leader, if they get out of control, if they get out of line, well then they will be punished severely. You see, there really is a new sheriff in town. We are on the fourth turning. Things are changing. You have China with the brains, and they have Luca Brasi, the muscle, with Russia. Let's get right down to it. What happened with the missile blowing up at lunchtime? The first thing you have to remember is a lot of the parts, if not the complete technology and the complete missile, comes from China. North Korea is a satellite of China, a buffer zone. China is not going to let that buffer zone be destroyed if they can help it. That's why they want a peaceful solution. That's why people may not realize that when you test these missiles, whenever you test an ICBM missile and you shoot it off, the first thing you do is you put explosives all over the missile. This is in preparation. In preparation that the missile doesn't go where you want it to go. You see, these missiles can be unstable, just like Donald Trump, just like the leader of Korea, North Korea. These missiles are unstable. So you put explosives. You line the whole missile with explosives. If it starts to go rogue, if it's going in the wrong direction, it's heading to the little village, you blow it up. You push a button, it just blows up. There's destruct ordnance on there. Now, the people who could push that button would be the North Koreans and the Chinese who have the technology. They're the ones who decided to blow it up quickly. They did it because the Chinese leader is very smart. He knew that Donald Trump spent $1 billion to send a huge armada to North Korea to show how big and strong he is. China was helping him out to save face. The missile will blow up on launch. Oh, And then Alex Jones can claim to all his disciples, North Korea back down. It really is a joke. Really is a joke. Alex Jones working for Donald Trump. They claim that North Korea backed down. No, North Korea did not back down. They blew the missile up on the launch pad for Donald Trump to save face, and we don't go into World War III. It really was the smart thing to do. Now, are the children going to continue to be unstable? Let's hope not. But if they do, like I said, the Chinese leader with his muscle, with his Russian muscle, they can punish you severely if they want to. This will probably pan out just like it's panned out in the past. The American president acts tough, and the American people forget that they have no jobs and they have no factories. And they don't even care that Donald Trump spent $1 billion to send a naval armada to North Korea that is in no danger of hurting us. It really is sad. When you really think about it, Donald Trump, a reality TV star, sending a whole armada to North Korea to shoot down one little tiny missile that China could blow up in a second if they wanted to, because it's their technology. Okay, I think we've said enough on that issue. But don't forget why it's being done. Why on day 77 of the Donald Trump administration did he start acting like a warlord? It's very, very clear, because he has no answers on how to build factories. He has no answers on how he's going to rebuild the roads, the highways, the bridges, new airports, new train systems. He has no answers. And as his answers are void, as his brain is void and he's on the golf course thinking about it, all the stores are closing down. That's why we're talking about it on Easter Sunday. The reason why we're talking about some bully over in North Korea or some bully over in the desert in Syria that mean absolutely nothing to me, trust me. That North Korean fat little bully means nothing to me, and he should mean nothing to you. What you and I are being diverted away, what our attention is being diverted away from, is that the stores are closing like crazy. They're closing in Kentucky, North Carolina, San Diego, Santa Barbara, Sarasota, Athens, Georgia, Louisville, Kentucky, North Carolina, Grand Forks, North Dakota, Las Vegas, Nevada. They call them associates, these employees that have worked there so long. They call them associates. Over in Steubenville, Ohio, where Dean Martin, where Dino Crocetti grew up. Steubenville, Ohio. They're closing the stores down. They're closing the factories are already shut down. But now it's time to shut down the corporations and the stores, because Americans don't have any money to buy the Chinese garbage. So every day in Houston, Texas, every day a store will close down as Donald Trump is golfing. And he'll remind you about some bully in North Korea. But it is Easter Sunday. Over in Greece, they're going back to a tradition of sending the rockets out on Greece. That's interesting. Erdogan, in more news, Erdogan in Turkey is winning his big vote on becoming a complete dictator. Google, the trending search is World War III. There is no footage of Tillerson and Putin meeting because Putin was insulted. And of course, we're going to go into some more current events. Some footage of what they do over in Greece for Easter. For a while, they stopped this tradition for a while, but here it is. They've started to back up. They send the rockets up into the air. It looks good on paper. It looks good, but Greece is falling, Greece is fading just like America. Nobody wants to hear the bad news. Why is that? When Muhammad Ali is getting old and he can't talk right, and nobody wants, what are we supposed to do? Just ignore that Muhammad Ali couldn't speak right before he died? What are we supposed to do? Put our head in the sand and say, oh, America's fading. It's a fading glory, but we're not going to talk about it. Why not? Why not face reality? Is it really that difficult for Americans to face reality? That maybe the Chinese are working just a little bit harder than you? Face it, it's nothing to be ashamed of. Actually, we must ask ourselves, how did it happen? America is a rich country. We once had a lot of money. I believe we still do have a lot of money, but the money is in the hands of certain people. Let me see if I can put a number on it. 0.00001. We know what they look like. We know the names of these people who have the money. We're going to go into that. One of their banks is closing down. One of their oldest banks in the world, which they control, it's closing down. Their system is falling apart. They're hiding it from us. They want to they're clinging on to control. So they try to divert our attention away from our situation with rockets and fireworks and bombs and rainbows and TV. They control the TV also, don't they? They control all the newspapers. They want you to understand that it's not news unless the New York Times tells you it's news. You see, Steve Bannon is out the door because the New York bankers tell you he's out the door. See, it's a diversion, huh? They're not talking to you about all the Macy's stores that's closing down. That's not news. Remember that. Google's in on it too. No. The news they want you to hear about this Easter weekend is Steve Bannon is out the door. Forget about Macy's closing down. It's not an issue because the New York bankers tell you it's not an issue. They really do still control the narrative. They're losing control, but I'm just here to tell you they still have a little bit of grasp on the brainwashing. See, here it is, Sunday, Easter Sunday, and what are people talking about? The Saturday Night Live skit. It was oh so funny. Baldwin's got a promising career portraying Donald Trump to divert our attention away from you know what. I've already explained it to you. The fading of America. What I found funny was they had a pretty good character. Rosie O'Donnell here, that's Rosie O'Donnell if you don't know, she could have portrayed Steve Bannon pretty good in the skit. I was surprised that they did not use Rosie O'Donnell. She would have made a great Steve Bannon in some weird, tranny Hollywood world. But the fact is, Hollywood in New York tried to manipulate you. They don't try. They're blatant at it. Steve Bannon as the Death. Steve Bannon as Satan or Dr. Death. I mean, how bad is that? You just can't get any worse than this. And then look at Kushner. The cool glasses. The desert bulletproof vest. Really cool. Yes, they represent Hollywood. They control Hollywood. You'll never see them looking bad as a drug dealer, a pimp. Anything bad, no. They do not represent themselves as bad. Could you imagine them representing Kushner as Dr. Death? No, it had to be the Gentile Bannon. This really makes me mad, kind of. Because they control Hollywood. A real American who served in the Navy, an American hero, an American veteran, is portrayed as Dr. Death because they don't like you and I and the rest of the Gentiles. But them, the masters of the universe, Their man, Kushner, is represented as Mr. Cool. Desert bulletproof wear, sunglasses, Mr. Cool. Well, if this brainwashing wasn't so blatantly pathetic, I wouldn't even mention it. But it is so sickening. When I think of Hollywood today, I really want to puke. I really do want to puke. So they made the 36-year-old punk look cool. Glasses and desert camo bulletproof vest. Where's that come from? Well, you know they sent him to Iraq. Here's the picture of him in Iraq with his bulletproof vest on. He's being talked to a colonel there. If you notice the colonel looks kind of young. Let's go over some of the pictures of this, because the world is changing. The world is not like it used to be. Number one, this is a pretty young colonel. But what I noticed also about this picture is a lot of these military folks, they don't have any hat on. They don't have any cover on. They're outside. It used to be back in the day when you were in the military, you put your cover on. You had a hat on when you were outside. But also, every one of these military guys have black glasses on. It's almost like Hollywood has taken over the mind control of everybody. What you're looking at here is life imitating art. Let's go back when America was different. McNamara, he was the man who was in charge of Vietnam. He went on to head up the World Bank. But you notice how the military men have their hats on? They got their covers on. You notice how the leaders, the officers were a little bit more mature then. But again, they all have their hats on. These are just little small details, but they're interesting to me. Go back to Kushner. Again, the colonel looks a little young for some reason. I don't know why. He just looks young to me. They're not wearing cover. I mean, yeah, I guess it's the glasses. What really strikes me about this picture is, number one, Kushner doesn't even belong there. He's got a goddamn suit on. He doesn't even belong there. But the colonel's a little young. They don't wear cover. But let's look at when McNamara met a colonel in Vietnam. Look at this colonel. Looked a little bit more older, more mature, didn't he? Seasoned. Yeah, seasoned. Smarter. Smarter, but with common sense wisdom. Fair. You can imagine an old timer like this. He's really stringy, tough, but he has common sense. He's fair. How times have changed. And then you go to today's full bird colonel. A little younger, got the Hollywood glasses on. I guess it's the glasses that really bothers me. And of course, we got a 36-year-old punk that is a slumlord in New York. I mean, I guess that bothers me too. What's a New York slumlord doing over there telling full bird colonels what to do? We'll go back to the old days. Do any of these soldiers have black Hollywood glasses on? When I was in the military, it would have been laughable if our whole squadron showed up with black glasses. I mean, it just wouldn't have happened. In closing with the Kushner big military zone theater show, look how he's shaking hands here. No warrior is going to shake the hands of another warrior with two hands cupped over the other. It's New York sissy slumlord stuff. It's really pathetic. You have to keep one hand free. If you're going to use the customary handshake, you do it strong with one hand. You keep one hand free. You might have to use it. You may have to strike somebody. Even better, in a war zone, it might even be more appropriate if you do an Asian kung fu bow. I don't know. The whole thing with Jared Kushner just is not set right with me. A 36-year-old punk, a slumlord from New York, getting involved in war zones so he can become the next head of the World Bank. It all just doesn't fit well with me. As I've said 1,000 times before, when I look at these people, I literally want to throw up. But you know what? To them, that's fine. If you and I are so upset, that's fantastic. To slumlord, antichrist, money changers. Because if you're upset, that diverts your attention away from the fact that you don't have any job and the stores are closing down. Anything to divert your attention away. It's all good to them. So if you're sick at your stomach, don't feel too bad because you're not alone. And the world is with you, actually. Take the former president of Afghanistan. He says that the current leader of Afghanistan, it was treason for his successor to allow Donald Trump to drop the mother of all bombs. That was literally treason to the country of Afghanistan. I guess Hamid kind of knows how Americans feel nowadays. The Congress is filled with a bunch of treasonous bastards. We've already talked about the North Korea's attempted missile launch exploding immediately after liftoff, which Alex Jones claims was proof that North Korea backed down by attempting to set off the missile. That was North Korea backing down to Donald Trump. That's Alex Jones for you. Another reason why you should really stay away from steroids. And you know, in some weird way, this Korean leader here, he sort of reminds me of Alex Jones in some sort of Asian version. It's kind of strange. So here we are. It's day 87 of the Donald Trump regime. It's coming out that the NSA monitored all the global bank transfers. SWIFT. They call it the SWIFT program. If you're going to transfer money through the system, we're going to get to the banking system that's collapsing. This is an interesting story. One of the oldest banks in the world had to be bailed out. But they are also part of this SWIFT program. And how interesting is this? That the NSA monitors every transaction. So if somebody in Italy was transferring $1 million to Germany, the NSA boys wanted to know all about it. Yes, that's the world we live in. And if you think it doesn't mean anything to you, because a lot of people say, hey, why should I care if the NSA is spying on the German bankers and is transferring money? Why should it matter to you? Because when the big boys like China and Russia, when they develop alternative systems to get around SWIFT, which they've already done, this could easily destabilize the dollar bill that they pay you with. Remember the masters. When I say they, every time I say they, I'm talking about the masters who control the banks. I'm going to tell you a secret here that a lot of people don't know about. We're going to get into that. I'm going to tell you a secret that is alarming. The entire problem of not only America, the entire problem of the whole entire world is people like the Goldman Sachs bankers. These people, we call them dual citizens. They have all kind of names. Dual citizens, that seems to fit them well because they don't have any loyalty to America. They don't have any loyalty to Italy. Their loyalty is to Israel. These are money changers. They're in Goldman Sachs. They surround Donald Trump. And they do not want to give up power. I'm going to be I'm going to be telling you the secret about these people. They do not want to give up power, even though the system collapsed. In 2008, when the banking system collapsed, and George Bush had to give them $1 trillion to keep the doors open, they were not the least bit embarrassed. They said, who cares if the stores shut down? Who cares if everything shuts down? We've been the money changers for 2,000 years. It's like it's ingrained in them that, listen, we are the money changers. You people don't know anything about money. The secret I'm going to tell you is that you have been sold down the river. Our Gentile leaders have sold us down the river, not for just the last 80 years, not for 150 years, not for 200 years, No, they have not been selling us down the river for 500 years. Our Gentile leaders have been selling us down the river for over 2,000 years. That's the worst part of the whole story. When you go into history and you find out who controls the money, our Gentile leaders, and we are the majority. We have to put all of the blame on our Gentile leaders. Our Gentile leaders have delegated this banking to them. Our Gentile leaders were either simply naive, stupid, or traitors. They handed over the power of our money to them. This always ends badly. It always ends badly. Normally about every 100 years, the boom happens. You give these people control of the money, and about every 100 years, the whole thing comes crashing down. But the weird part is, our Gentile leaders keep on giving them control of the banks again. This is insane. This is inept. Our leaders are inept at best, or traitors at worst. We're going to go into it. It's one of the oldest banks in the world, almost 500 years old. We're going to go in. They failed. They had to be bailed out. What I'm trying to tell you is these dual citizens are not as smart as they claim to be. They are frauds. They claim to be the greatest money changers in the world. You have to give us control of the money because we're the only ones who know how to handle it. And yet, the banking system collapsed in '08. The housing collapsed. The dot-comming. Everything seems to collapse around these people. You know why? Because they do it on purpose. They create the boom. And as the boom is going on, they sell everything. And then the boom creates the collapse. And guess what they're doing during the collapse? They're buying everything. And because of this, they control the money for over 2,000 years. This is insane. This really is insane. But everything revolves around these people controlling the money. And this is where we're at on day 87 of the Donald Trump regime. We're still at that pathetic point in our life where we delegate our money, the authority over our money, we delegate it to these people, like the Federal Reserve banking cartel. I wouldn't let Janet Yellen shine my shoes. That's how bad it is. I literally would not let Ben Bernanke or Janet Yellen spits shine my shoes, and yet they're in control of the money that we spend. That makes our leaders complete idiots. But some of them are just out and out treasonous traitors. We're going to talk about something today that you probably don't know. You have to remember this. You and I have to be smarter than them. You see, we don't have long, beautiful legs all the way up to our hips. No, we have to be smarter and clever than them. We also have to be able to identify them just by looking at them. Remember, we're going to go into them, how they control all the money. One of their banks have just failed. But do you realize that Donald Trump is probably the first Jewish president that America has ever had? Some people will argue with me on that. But if you look at the picture on the left, if you look at Donald Trump's offspring, that to me is proof that Donald Trump is the first Jewish president of the United States of America. His offspring, the way his daughter looks, tells me why she brought in all the Goldman Sachs bankers. If you want to know why Donald Trump's administration is full of Goldman Sachs, New York, dual citizen bankers, just look at the picture on the left. If that doesn't tell you anything, well, I'm probably not going to be able to help you today. You truly do have to be able to identify their names and their looks, because they do not forgive. They do not forget or forgive you. You see, they are in charge. You are their servant. Before we get to the bank that's failing, let's look at one little story quickly about how the government could shut down. Probably not, it never does. The government never does shut down, but there is a chance that the government could shut down this month, and we're just going to briefly go into that. The story here is I think this is by Peter Schiff. Is the federal government going to shut down? Let's just briefly look at it before we get to the bank. Will the government shut down this month? Could they run out of money? The last time this happened was 2013. Now it could happen. Only thing they usually do is they close down all the national parks just to annoy you. Oh, you're not going to be able to go to Yellowstone. If we don't get our money for the government, forget about Yellowstone this summer. So, yeah, they just try to piss us off and annoy us. But the government will go on. The FBI will keep on investigating you. The NSA will continue to listen to your phone calls. The NSA will continue to watch over all the banking transactions through SWIFT. So that's going to happen. So let's get right down to it. There's a bank that's closing down. Or no, it would have closed down if they didn't get a bailout. Now people were talking about that the bank was going to get a bail-in. But they ended up getting a bailout because, you see, they control the money. Now the name of the bank is Monte dei Paschi di Siena. Now this is the oldest bank in the world. It was formed back in 1472. Remember who controls all the banks. They control all the banks. That's going to be one of the secrets I'm going to show you today. One of the family. There's one of the family names there. Piccolomini. Yeah, one of the families that started the bank. Piccolomini. Now, this is an old family name. You would think that a bank in Italy would be controlled by Italians. Well, you'd be wrong. You see, they have controlled the money for 2,000 years. I told you we were sold out by our Gentile leaders. Nobody wants to talk about it because our old Gentile leaders, they're people, Donald Trump considers himself one of our Gentile leaders. I think he may be a cryptic fraud. But there's other people out there like VP Pence, and they bow down to these money changers. They say, oh, the Gentiles are not smart enough to control the money. We got to give the banks to the money changers. So let's go into it. I'm going to show you some things that you have to be able to research their names. I told you that my entire life I've been obsessed with their names. I was not joking. Now, we're going to go to the key executives on the board of directors for the bank. One of the guys' name is Capello. Remember, we're talking about the people who control the bank. Monte dei Paschi di Siena. Capello. We go and we find out that there's Morelli there. Morelli. And when we go and look at the names, what do we find out? That yes, Morelli could be one of their names. Capello could be one of their names. We're talking about Sephardic names. You really have to understand this. There's Sephardic, there's Ashkenazi, Mele. You have to be able to research their names if you're going to understand who controls the banks. If you want to know who your master is, if you want to know who Donald Trump bows down to, you've got to be able to identify the names. There it is. Mele, Morelli, Bartolucci. Next name, Grazzini. Now, yes, these could be Italian names, but they're also Sephardic names. You see, because they're not going to let a Gentile like myself in the banking industry. You've got to have a bloodline to Grazzini, Morelli, Bartolucci, but it has to be a bloodline to them. Bartolucci. Am I getting through to you? Donald Trump is a fraud. His offspring is one of these people. They're one of the Bartolucci people. They're one of the Morelli people. The Grazzini. They're not Roman Italians. They go back 2,000 years. They're frauds. They're cryptic. They hide the fact from us. That's the most despicable part of it. They get plastic surgery and they pretend to be Nordic. They pretend to be one of you. But in reality, we find out that they are one of them, and they bring all their Goldman Sachs scum in. And that's where we're at now on day 87 of the Donald Trump White House regime. If you want to know why there's no factories being built, if you want to know why they're going to take all your money and spend it on bombs and give it to the military-industrial complex, because they want to bring us to our knees on day 87. Donald Trump is not going to like you to know the truth. But if you cannot identify these people, that's where we're going to end up. It's not a pretty sight.